Hello and welcome. My name is Shailesh Kumar and you're watching National Defense. Prime Minister Narendra Modi met with President Xi Jinping of the People's Republic of China on the sidelines of the summit of the leaders of the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, the SCO in Tianjin, today on 31st August. Prime Minister has talked about one important point which I'll discuss, and that is both the leaders, in fact, not only the Prime Minister, that special representatives of India and China, Wang Yi and NSA Ajit Doval, who met in New Delhi very recently, had taken some important decisions with regards to the border, the line of actual control. So, what is this decision of the SR special representatives concerning the border, which is not being made public till now, as far as I understand? Would that decision be made public in the further meetings or in any press conference? Both leaders, President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Narendra Modi, and the same reflects in the press release by the Ministry of External Affairs of India. So this is very important because ultimately India and China, who are undergoing the reset of bilateral ties in the wake of President Trump's tariff war across the globe, which has severely affected India and China both equally, because both trade with Russia, both take Russian oil. So Trump administration has put sanctions, put extra tariffs on India particularly. So we'll talk about that. Both leaders welcomed the positive momentum and steady progress in bilateral relations since their last meeting in Kazan in October 2024. I think they met on 23rd October. Both leaders reaffirmed that the two countries were development partners and not rivals, and that their differences should not turn into disputes. A stable relationship and cooperation between India and China and their 2.8 billion people on the basis of mutual respect, mutual interest, and mutual sensitivity are necessary for the growth and development of the two countries, as well as for a multipolar world and a multipolar Asia befitting the trends of the 21st century. In fact, both leaders have been talking about elephant and dragon dancing together. President Xi Jinping recently made a visit to Tibet, Lhasa, Tibet's capital. When Wang Yi visited India, India had made a statement which was not in official press release, but it was being made out, that recognized Taiwan as part of China. India endorsed the One China policy. With regards to Tibet, India already has the same policy, that Tibet is part of China, People's Republic of China. So it shares the border with China. India shares the border with China in that way. And most of the boundary is not being recognized by the China. More than 3,480 or 3,500 kilometers boundary is not recognized by People's Republic of China, whether it's a McMahon line or the western sector Ladakh. There's some little bit of dispute in the middle sector, however, that is very negligent in comparison to the western Ladakh, the western sector, where Aksai Chin and the Ladakh portion is disputable. China says Arunachal Pradesh is their South Tibet. So we'll talk about that also. But let's go further. What the press release and the Minister of External Affairs statement says. It says Prime Minister underlined the importance of peace and tranquility on the border areas for continued development of bilateral relations. The two leaders noted with satisfaction the successful disengagement last year and the maintenance of peace and tranquility along the border areas since then. They expressed commitment to a fair, reasonable, and mutually acceptable resolution of the boundary question, proceeding from the political perspective of their overall bilateral relations and the long term interests of the two peoples. They recognized the important decisions taken by the two special representatives in their talks earlier this month and agreed to further support their efforts. So, what were these decisions? Were not specifically categorically detailed by Minister of External Affairs or in any government document. As far as I know, I may have missed, but I don't think I have missed anything. But let's go further first. The two leaders noted the need to strengthen people to people ties through direct flights and visa facilitation, building on the resumption of Kailash Mansarovar Yatra and tourist visa. On economic and trade relations, they recognized the role of their two economies to stabilize world trade. They underlined the need to proceed from a political and strategic direction to expand bilateral trade and investment ties and reduce trade deficit. Prime Minister noted that India and China both pursue strategic autonomy and their relations should not be seen through a third country lens. The two leaders deemed it necessary to expand common ground on bilateral, regional, and global issues and challenges like terrorism and fair trade in multilateral platforms. Prime Minister expressed support for China's presidency of the SCO and the summit in Tianjin. He also invited President Xi Jinping to the BRICS summit that India will be hosting in 2026. President Xi thanked Prime Minister for the invitation and offered China's support to India's BRICS presidency. Prime Minister Modi also had a meeting with Cai Qi, member of the Standing Committee of the Politburo of the Communist Party of China, CCP. Prime Minister shared with Cai his vision for bilateral relations and sought his support to realize the vision of the two leaders. Cai reiterated the Chinese side's desire to expand bilateral exchanges and further improve relations in line with the consensus reached between the two leaders. So, this is the crux of the bilateral meeting with Mr. Xi Jinping of our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi. What do we understand this from this? We should think of that the two leaders have met, both looked happy, there is a bonhomie, there is a love. I mean, there is a thaw of the ice which was freezing cold since the Galwan Valley incident, had some improvement, some warmth during the Kazan summit. And then after nearly 10 months from October 23rd to 31st August 2025, we see much better ties. And since both the leaders have said that the relations between the China and India should not be viewed through the lens of a third country. So they are talking about United States of America at this particular juncture. Because in media, it is being said so many of times that now it's a message to Trump, this is this, this is that. But both the leaders have clarified that it is not linked with the United States of America. The relations, they pursue different relations with United States of America and they pursue their different relations vis-a-vis each other. India and China both are sharing 75 years of diplomatic ties this year. That is how the bonhomie is growing. But also, both countries are at loss from the viewpoint of our United States of America that has imposed unjustified tariffs on both the countries, especially on India. Because United States wants to have less dependency on China for critical minerals, the rare earth minerals. And India, it is punishing because it is not able to persuade Russia to stop the Ukraine war, its offensive in Ukraine, its special military operation in Ukraine. It says that if you buy oil from Russia, it fuels Russian economy, with which President Putin fights with Putin. President Putin fights with Zelensky, the Ukraine. So that is one important point, that the relationship between the bilateral relationship between the India and China should not be viewed through the lens of the third country. But as far as my sources say in the Ministry of External Affairs, the top sources, very reliable, India and United States, they have a very robust partnership. They are going to be more stronger partners in Indo-Pacific. Believe you me. Even after this SCO summit in Tianjin, even after the bilateral summit between the President Modi and Xi Jinping, India and United States of America, they will settle their dispute through negotiations, talks, and as far as I understand from my sources, India is going to have a wonderful relationship with United States of America, as it was progressing well after multiple signing of foundational agreements, with increased exchanges in terms of military exercises, with increased foreign military sales to India. The ties are going to be much stronger between India and United States of America very soon after the SU summit. You will see. This is what my sources told in the Ministry of External Affairs, and my sources, they are very reliable, and I have a record of saying things in perspective with truthfulness. So India-China relationship, they are progressing on a different note. India-US relationship, they are progressing on different note. India-Russia partnership or relationship is pursuing on a different note. So what I mean to say, that India has a non-aligned policy. It has strategic autonomy. It has choosing partners and friends depending on its own national interest. It is not guided by any other country's national interest. And President Xi Jinping has been told time and again by our Prime Minister, Mr. Modi, that India believes in Vasudhaiv Kutumbakam. India is not to demean any nation or to let down any nation. It is for the growth and prosperity of all human beings, all countries. It does not want to fight any country. India is for the peace. India stands for the peace. And he has time and again said that this is not an era of war. And that was the main reason why Prime Minister Narendra Modi has time and again said that no one has entered our territory. However, there could be different perceptions of the statement, but if you see with the perspective now, there is a greater need of better relationship between the two countries. Both are the great civilizations. Prime Minister Narendra Modi had time and again said that how he lived in the village where the Chinese once saying the travelers, they came first, and since very childhood he has written letters to the embassy of China. He has said in the podcast, if you remember. So his fondness to China is from the very beginning, and now it is reflecting. People may perceive it different way, but I don't think that the Indian government is going to compromise even one single inch of its territory, of its land. It is not. Prime Minister Modi is polite but firm. We have seen both the armies standing face to face for years with resolve not to let the enemy take our land. They have fought valiantly in Galwan Valley, and our BRO is constantly building roads deep inside our border. However, Chinese may have much closer. We have different perspective. There's no demarcated line which is recognized by China or maybe India as per, but the demarcation is going on. Rajnath Singh has also said, in national interests, there is no permanent enemy or no permanent friend in geopolitics. They keep changing. But India doesn't believe in animosity. India believes in good relations with all the nations. But here, when we talk, we should look at with some perspectives. And the perspective of this meeting should be viewed through the lens that President Xi Jinping on 19th August made his second visit to Lhasa, the capital of Tibet. I think it was on 20th. On 19th, our foreign minister, Mr. Jaishankar, and Chinese special representative to India, Wang Yi, they had a meeting, and they had a meeting with NSA Doval, and he also met our Prime Minister. And the very next day, on August 20th, Chinese President Xi Jinping arrived in Lhasa, the capital of Tibet, and he was accompanied by none other than very senior CCP leaders that include Wang Haning and the Kai Ki. The Kai Ki is the member of the standing committee of the Politburo of the Chinese Communist Party, who met our Prime Minister today, Kai Ki. And the very same day, you must look at why I am saying Prime Minister Modi is not going to compromise on the land border. Because on that very day, when President Xi Jinping landed in Lhasa, India's Strategic Force Command, that comes under the PMO, I believe, I'm not wrong, test fired Agni 5 intermediate range ballistic missile from Chandipur in Odisha. And on 21st August, Xi Jinping, he participated in grand celebration on the occasion of the 60th anniversary of founding of Xizang or Tibet Autonomous Region that was founded in 1965. But this time, during his last visit, the first visit when he went to Lhasa, Xi Jinping did a stop at Nyangchi. But this time he did not, during the second visit on 20th August 2025. Now, Nyangchi is a very highly militarized zone, very near to disputed Arunachal border. The first visit was in July 2021, soon after the Galwan clash, and it was a strategic message to India. Therein, China has made civil military dual use infrastructure at a massive scale. Now, around a week later, Prime Minister Narendra Modi is in Tianjin to participate in SCO summit. He will be participating tomorrow, the 1st September. So, India has long recognized Tibet as part of the China. But this was because of India's past government's follies, maybe, that despite our recognition to Tibet being part of the People's Republic of China, we did not, or we failed to negotiate or resolve our boundary with China. When we have recognized Tibet as part of China, we should have resolved the boundary issue at that very point of time, but it did not. It did not happen. So, in that perspective, there have been 34 meetings of WMCC, which is for peace and tranquility on the border, and there have been 24 rounds of the special representative talks now. And when Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping both are saying that their special representatives have come to conclusion on some issue, some agreement. So what is that agreement which is beyond the agreement signed on 23rd October 2024 in Kazan last year in Russia? So that agreement is further to the border patrol agreement which we have signed. So we are awaiting eagerly what is that, what are the content of that agreement. So this particular issue I believe is very important for both the nations, because 34 WMCC meetings and signing of border patrol agreements and 24 rounds of special representatives talks. Now all eyes have been fixed on President Xi Jinping and Prime Minister Modi's meeting in Tianjin today. So I mean there is more to it to come. Dr. S. Jaishankar, India's External Affairs Minister, he emphasized last time the de-escalation at the border when he met Wang Yi in Delhi on 19th of August this year, just few days back. And both the leaders expressed satisfaction over peace and tranquility that now persists at LAC following this engagement last year after Kazan. So again, when our Foreign Affairs Minister, External Affairs Minister meeting Wang Yi, then again the same tone, and now again the same tone. So this has to be clarified. This has to be made more elaborate. India has, during that meeting, India has clarified on One China policy. It's a big concession, I believe, to People's Republic of China, that India says Taiwan is part of the Republic of China, People's Republic of China. The Republic of China is part of the mainland People's Republic of China. That's a recognition. And I believe it's a big concession to China, who is ready to fight Taiwan, who is ready to fight United States of America, who is ready to fight anyone for Taiwan. However, on paper it may be, but India has always been talking about freedom of navigation, both in the waters and in the air, and since a lot of trade goes on through the South China Sea, it has all supportive of Philippines. We have seen the Vietnam, who had border dispute, Indonesia, Thailand. It has border dispute with these nations have border disputes with China in SCS, South China Sea, because it claims the whole of South China Sea of its own. It doesn't endorse the UNCLOS verdict. So concession to China on Taiwan may have led China to soften its stance on the LAC or on different trade issues. But the big question is whether after the disengagement, it's been almost a year, 10 months or so, would there be de-escalation? Would the forces will move out when they are facing each other? There's a heavy deployment both sides. So that's again a big question. So if the forces, they de-escalate, what is next? Which SR, special representatives, both India and China, Ajit Doval and Wang Yi agreed to. So whether it is going to be in the form of some settlement on the border in the western sector. There have been demarcation work going on as per my sources, but whether both the nations they agreed on some part of the LAC to settle or to agree on particular stretch, not sure. Whether it's the middle sector, which China and India both might have agreed to, so that they can sign some border agreement. So it is about to come. Let's see how it goes. So I believe that the relationship between India and China are going to be very smooth, very consistent, reliable, predictable, the peace and tranquility would definitely be there on the border. However, one has to be always ready and never lower its guard, because China, they have five finger policy, and they are not easily trustable. When they settled their border issue with Russia, they were at the right side. They were at the receiving end. They got the land, they got the WTO membership, they got the peace, and that has boomed ranked their economy. And it was a major boost for China when Sergei Lavrov and Zhang Jiechi, I believe so, they signed the border agreements last time, and that had totally settled the border with Russia by and large, except the Far East. So I believe that China, India politically may be moving closer, but militarily, our armed forces, they should never ever lower their guards against the Chinese aggression, against the prospective or potential Chinese threat, because Xi Jinping may not be having full control of the CMC, the Chinese Military Commission. The PLA leaders, they may not be in full control of President Xi Jinping. He has, in the last over, I think, 12, 13 years, he has got the stronghold now. He has purged the total rocket force after the corruption, after the spying, espionage issue came up. So all the leaders were being purged, right from the defense minister to foreign minister to the PLA leaders, rocket force, total purging. So still there could be some elements in the People's Liberation Army of China who may want Xi Jinping not to assert his full control. So India should never lower guard. And why I'm saying, because in 2013, when I had shown the pictures that when Prime Minister Modi and President Xi Jinping were having a good time here in India on the banks of, I think, Sabarmati, our citizens, our civilian, our people at the border, and backed by our forces, they were having placards, they were having banners, and they were just asking the Chinese to move away from their territory. So they had transgressed at that point of time. Again, President Xi Jinping was in an embarrassing situation when he was here to improve the relationship. But he did not have the control on the PLA commanders, the leaders, the generals. So I strongly believe that the military, whether our Indian Army, Indian Air Force, Indian Navy, or Special Forces, they should not lower the guard at any cost. However good relationship both the countries may have, even if we de-escalate, Chinese can move their troops so quickly because they had a robust border infrastructure. Not only the airfields, but the roads they have built over the time that can operate even fighter jets, the mightiest of the fighter jets on the road. It works as a runway. However, India has the arterial roads. It has quite good advantage in some sector in our east against the Chinese. The war is not a scenario at all, and it should not be. Indian government's stance is very clear: no war with China. But if it comes to the sovereignty, there should not be any compromise. And the Chinese, they must have understood the sensitivities of India, because the whole media knows that our Deputy Chief of Army Staff, General Rahul, he had said in a FICCI event that during operation, I was there, I attended, I covered that event. I had listened to General Rahul, who said, categorically said, that during Operation Sindoor, which we launched against Pakistan, China was providing real-time intelligence and assistance to Pakistan, militarily assistance, not only the weapons, equipment, but the real-time intelligence. So they had the AI center, they have the satellite, they have the real-time intelligence sharing mechanisms. So when we do not desire a war with China, we are always ready to teach a lesson to Pakistan. But in case of a possible conflict, China can always move its troops so rapidly. So even if we have de-escalation, we should not pull back our troops to a distance which costs us heavily in case of a conflict in future. So all norms, all military strategies should be devised that way, and I'm sure it should be. So coming back to this Tianjin summit, which is to be held tomorrow, India and Pakistan would see each other. The Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif of Pakistan and Prime Minister Modi will be meeting on the same platform after 2015 first time, and first time ever after Operation Sindoor. And how the chemistry would work out, it's very interesting to see. Would there be a joint communique, the joint statement on terrorism? Because Rajnath Singh did not sign, or Jaishankar was heavily against, or very in a heavily worded statements says that terrorism should be treated equally. So support of China to Pakistan on terrorism issue is well known. So how China would soften its stance, and how President Xi Jinping will take two leaders on the right and left. It would be very interesting to see how Shehbaz Sharif would meet the eyes with Prime Minister Modi when they had killed 26 people in Pahalgam, 25 Indians and one Nepali citizen. And that happened to include one brave Muslim guy who saved Hindus in Pahalgam. That's a lesson to Pakistan's Army Chief Field Marshal Asim Munir. So again, this is very interesting that both the leaders, I had asked one of my sources, was there any request of a bilateral meeting from Pakistan in Tianjin during the sidelines of the SU Summit 2025? Because it's going to be a big summit. 25 head of the states would be there in the SU Summit, and Pakistan and India, they are big. Putin would be there, and what kind of bilateral meeting we will have with President Putin, that's again a very important outcome to see. And how would Putin play Pakistan at Tianjin, that would again to be seen. But I believe that this summit is going to be very, very interesting, and this is going to send a message to Trump administration, and the Trump administration is also keenly watching on the outcome of this summit and the bilateral between India and China, bilateral between Russia and India. If they has not been disclosed as yet, but I'm 100% sure that there would be a bilateral with President Putin and Prime Minister Modi. So how United States would play it out after this SU summit, that's very interesting to see. But I believe, and I got to know from my sources, that India and United States of America is going to have very good relationship in Indo-Pacific, and we had seen that Quad is going to be much stronger. Our Prime Minister Modi has visited Japan before visiting China and Tianjin, And he had a very, very fruitful visit that concluded just before the bilateral with President Xi yesterday only. But one important aspect is he was well received in Japan with traditional Indian ethos, and the same goes. Uh, Prime Minister Modi was also received in China, a grand welcome that again shows that China wants India to have that stature, and in ASEAN, India does has. So perhaps I believe that this SU Summit 2025 will be a landmark event, but we should, despite having our differences with United States of America, because we should not be so emotional, being a big nation, 140 crores Indians. We should not be so particular about use of words like bad economy, because President Trump is known, or dead economy, I would say. President Trump to his own country is saying America was dead a year before. He said at least 100 times in different press conferences that America was a dead country a year before under the Joe Biden administration. Now it is alive, kicking, growing, and he talks how much $1 trillion he has brought from the visit to the Qatar, the first visit from Qatar, the UAE, and the Saudi Arabia, and he boasts how much $1 trillion he had collected due to this tariff imbalancing. He boasts that how many peace deals he has done and brought critical minerals to the fold of America that made less dependence on China, and how he is forcing China to continue the supply chain of critical minerals, rare earth minerals to America, which are indispensable for the space, for defense, for consumer goods, for many critical industries. So we should not be so sensitive. He had said time and again, America was a dead economy, America was dead country a year before. So when he says that India was a dead economy, however, he is wrong, absolutely wrong. India was growing at a very good growth rate, and it becomes the third largest economy. So to be surpassed by United States and Germany after we lag behind Japan. So I believe that we should not be so sensitive about words, use of words, because Mr. Trump is known kind of, forgive me, I don't want to be offensive, kind of bully in the diplomacy. So he is known for that attitude, and he may be because they are the biggest nation in the world, they are the biggest economy in the world, that brings a lot of proud, that brings a lot of arrogance. They are militarily very rich, but India is not going to have war with America. They should understand we are friends. We are absolutely friends. So they should not have used such words, and they should not have imposed tariffs, because you're doing the kind of harm which is being done during the wars. So we are friends, which you should not have done. You have diluted your own Indo-Pacific strategy. India is a partner, a very reliable, very strong partner in Indo-Pacific.